I've got a tent review for you today. It's the BA Copper Spur Ultralight 2, which is a mouthful, but in my opinion, this is my favorite freestanding two-person tent that I've ever used before. So I want to show you how I like to set it up and then go over some of the features of it. So the poles are all connected on one giant hub. They go together very easily. Notice that the ends, some are gray, two on this side, and then they're not symmetrical. That's tapered down and there's two with orange. Everything's color coded on this tent. So this is the ground sheet, which is optional, but even the ground sheet has color coded corners. So you match like with like. There is one secondary spreader bar that's by itself and two ball cups. So what I really like about this particular tent is its versatility for a freestanding tent while still being really light. You can use the ground sheet with just the rain fly to make almost like a waterproof floor and waterproof tarp, or you can use it to protect the inner body, or you can use it all together. So the choice is yours, and there's some other tricks that you can do with it too. But I'm going to set it up completely using the ground sheet because it is a nice tool to have and it does help protect the tent as well as help out in the rain. So if you choose to do it that way, you connect the tent poles right to this. So the next step is to get the tent body, and the same deal. There's gray clips in some corners, and orange. You just match like with like again. And at its very simple form, that's it. If it's a starry, clear night, no chances of dew or rain or anything of that nature, you could sleep in it just as it is. The beauty of it is it's a freestanding tent. You can pick the whole thing up, including the ground cloth, or footprint, whatever you want to call it, same thing, and move it around. You might lie down there, might be rocks or roots, or maybe you somebody cleans up their site and you find a better spot to go move your tent to. You can just pick it up and bring it. It's what's really nice about a freestanding tent. This also shines particularly well on tent platforms or any kind of terrain that just isn't really ideal for putting stakes in. So really rocky terrain or really sandy terrain where stakes may either be too hard to get or not hold very well, or even on the snow, even though this isn't a four-season tent. The rain fly goes on very easily, which you can add after. And keeping with the simplicity, the corners of the rain fly are also color-coded. So you'll note the orange and the gray. These clips simply go into, there's two options. If you don't use the ground cloth, they clip right into the tent body. However, if you use the ground cloth, you can clip them in directly into that and ignore the inner body. Each side's symmetrical. There's a zipper at the top that you can use for ventilation, but you can undo it and you can get to that same pole hub. And on the inside here, right at the intersection where everything's stitched, there's a little reflective webbing tab that has a pocket. And you just simply put the pole end into that pocket. You can do the same thing on the other side. Point, you do have the option, if you really think you'll need it, to attach these Velcro straps around each one of the four poles in this area. For this purpose, I'm going to skip that. The next step is to tension each corner. And just like this, the tent is up. If there is any kind of wind, it's always a good idea to stake in the corners if you can, but it's not necessary. You can even just put something heavy out here like a log or a rock to hold the vestibules out. And with your own body weight inside, the tent is not going to fly away on you unless you're in a tornado or something. So in its simplest form, it's done at this point. I'll show how good of a pitch you can get by staking out the corners though. Here's a walkthrough of the tent on the outside once it's all staked out. So it is a symmetrical tent in the sense that it has two sides that are exactly the same. However, it does have a head end, which is the silver or gray, and it does have a foot end, which tapers down on the inside, which is the orange. One tip I have for you for the vestibules, you'll notice that there is a stone cover on one side. I like to stake out that particular side, so that way I can use the other side, even though it has a loop, to roll up the door if I want. Flap does have a couple little Velcro pieces to keep it in place, and you can unzip it from the top if you need a little bit of ventilation. Speaking of that, there is a ventilation in the fly up here. This vent's very easy to take down. It just has a little Velcro dot there that you can tuck out of the way, and in really bad weather you can cinch that closed like so. You'll notice that there are additional guy out points that have these nice reflective cords on them. I find that I almost never need to use them, but same deal. If you were setting up in really rough conditions, you could. Here's a look at how much room you have for the vestibule. The side of the tent does have this panel down below with bug mesh for the rest of the door. The zippers on the door go to the corner, so there's two separate zippers that both end there, unlike most tents. It goes down to there. This one goes all the way up to the top there. And in the back, that orange clip, you can roll the door up, so I'm going to do that now. So the battle scar there that you can see with the sewing, that was professionally repaired by Big Agnes. I sent it out to them to have their experts repair it. And it was a very fast turnaround time. They had it back to me within 10 days. And it was not an expensive fix at all. I'm really happy with the quality of the repair that they did. I think it cost me $25. One other feature that this particular model has, this is the Mountain Glow, which is that little light bulb there. They give you that little pocket, and when you buy the Mountain Glow version, it comes with a small battery bank that uses, I believe, AAA batteries. It might be AA, I'll confirm that. But you can plug that right into the battery bank, and it has an on, low, and a high setting. You can plug it into this sewn-in, non-removable USB port that goes to string lights that actually go around this whole perimeter and over to the other side of the door. And they're very dim when you use it during the day, but it's when your eyes are adjusted and you're not being polluted by light, they actually provide a pretty good glow in here, definitely enough to read a map or to change your clothes or something. So they add a little bit of a nice touch to it. And when you don't bring the battery bank, it really doesn't add much weight at all. You're talking. This is the head end here. It's wider. It does taper down narrow in the feet. This organizer is made by Big Agnes. It doesn't come with the tent, but it is designed to fit this particular model. If you're interested, that's what you have to make sure you order, that specific one. There are two pockets sewn into the tent right by that logo. Another one matching right here. In addition, that gear hammock loft there does not come with the tent, but it is, again, made specifically for this tent. And you can control how that rests in there by using these cord locks here. You can either pull it tighter or looser, depending on what you have in there. And there's another easy to miss pocket that lives up here on the top as well. And you can see the vent going out there. You can only open and close the vent from the outside. One thing that's kind of neat is that they put little holes here in this sewn-in pocket. So through the door in my backyard, you can see my two dogs. And the big one left this battle scar in the tent. One of the very first times that I took this tent out to use, he woke up about 4 o'clock in the morning. It's 35 degrees, still dark. And he got really alert. And right when I was looking at him, asking him what was up, he just dove, paused first, through the tent door and out into the night. He was really young, and I didn't really trust him off leash then, so I was terrified because he was just gone off into the dark. and it turns out there was a porcupine trying to get the food bag that I had in the tree that was right next to us, and he smelled it and went out to go investigate it. Unfortunately, that particular trip, he didn't meet the porcupine. We just saw it up in the tree as it was kind of knocking stuff down. The time he met a porcupine is a different story. I've got the other vestibule door rolled back, and I did leave the stake down here in the ground with that yellow cord on it, so it's already been measured out. And with this configuration, if you do it on both sides, you can get a really nice cross breeze through the inside of the tent. So that really helps if it's hot or if there's a lot of condensation you're trying to avoid. I'll show you how you can take the inner body out while leaving this up. So if you imagine that it was pouring heavy rain right now, what you can do is you can go around and just simply take the inner floor off of the grommet here. All right, I got each of the four corners off. The only thing that's holding the inner tent body inside the tent are those clips. So here you go. So I've got everything taken off. The only thing that's left are the attachment points that are at the crossbar. So to do that, you do have to pop those out of the little cup and click the tent off of the pole and let it drop down and put the fly back on it. So after I removed the last two that were at the top, I have the inner body completely unclipped. And if you imagine that I was inside, I could fold this up or stuff it into a stuff sack as I needed to put it out of the way. And I found that this works really well, just folding it into thirds and then folding it in half. And even if it gets a little bit of the sprinkle on it or something, it'll be fine because that's the bottom of it that's waterproof. But I'll show you what it looks like inside now. So there's the inner body folded the long way into thirds and then folded in half. But what you're left with is the waterproof ground sheet on the inside, protecting you from the ground. And then you have just the rain fly that's set up with the poles. If you're going to use it like this, just as a tarp, then I would definitely recommend putting those Velcro pieces around the poles just to help keep everything in place a little bit better. Here you get a better idea of what the cup looks like with the webbing pull tab, and that is reflective, which helps you find it at night. But this is a really neat feature, the ability to be able to use this just by itself for sun or rain, or if there's no bugs, it's kind of an ultralight option. Or you could do your cooking in here if you're very careful, or pack up all of your stuff and then save this rain fly for last. Let's go over some of my favorite features of the tent. I'd have to say my favorite thing about this tent is its ease of setup. The color-coded matching ends make it very, very fast and easy to set up. You can usually figure out pretty quickly too that the vent goes on the head side. So as you're trying to unfold the rain fly before you even find the corners, you might be able to figure out which end's which. I like how secure the tent is for being so simple. It just needs a few of those hooks that go onto the poles. And then you do have that nice hub at the top that gives you a lot of headroom for such a small space. And for a freestanding tent, this tent's incredibly light. I'll put the weight up on the screen as well as the dimensions of the inside for you. But I feel like you get a lot of space for not very much weight. I really like the built-in pocket at the top and the smaller ones like most tents have. But I really like the organization because even though this is not as tiny as some two-person tents can be, there isn't a ton of room for two people. It's a lot of room for one person. But having these gear organizers makes it really nice for both people to get extra stuff off of the ground. I don't believe there's such a thing as a perfect tent, and this tent's included in that. So there are a couple features about it that I'm not a huge fan of. Probably, and they're honestly, they're pretty small, relatively speaking. So the clip for taking the vestibule door back on both sides, it's really low. So you end up with the bulk of the material being up here, and that's where all the weight kind of ends up. So this is rolled outward. If you roll it inside, it does the same thing, where that really wants to kind of come down. If there's a breeze or something, that blows us down overnight. It really comes down, and there's just no good way. There's no elastic in this. It's just sewn nylon, so it doesn't do a very good job of holding that bunched up. And then in addition, these little clips right here, some of my most annoying experiences, and it's only happened maybe 2 or 3 times, is that when I go to close this up, here's the scenario. So I like to sleep with all the vestibules open when I don't expect bad weather, just for the sounds of nature, fresh air, good ventilation, all that good stuff. But I've woken up before when there was a shower coming through, and it shouldn't be a big deal, right? You just unzip the door and you just take this clip out and kind of manipulate it like so, and try to work your way through it, and then you get it out and let's go. It's not so bad when you're awake, you've had your coffee, and you're standing outside in nice weather, but when you're in your sleeping bag still inside your tent, these are so flimsy that there's been times, twice, where I've accidentally, I'll show you on the other side, where I've accidentally tried to get this toggle out, and what I've done is I've gone back through the back like this, and essentially what I've done is I've double looped it, and that's happened to me, and both times it became so problematic for me to try to undo that I had to actually get my headlamp out and unzip the door enough to actually put a knee down on the ground that was now wet from rain. And while it's raining, mind you, and I just woke up, trying to manipulate this thing to get it back through here. And I can tell you right now, it won't make you try to watch. With this twist in it, I doubt I could do it with one hand. It's probably going to take me putting down the video camera to show you how to get that undone. So it's small, but that is an inconvenience. The other thing that I would like to see a little bit different, you'll notice that on the vestibule guy out points, it's just a loop. There's no tensioner. All right, now that the dogs are all riled up from us getting a delivery, let me go over the weights for all the individual parts. The tent does come with 8 good quality DAC or DAC aluminum stakes. They're the V style. So the included bag with the stakes in there, on my scale, comes to 3.4 ounces. This is the stuff sack for the entire tent with some instructions and warning. That comes in at 0.9 ounces. This is the pole bag, including the main pole hub assembly plus the one cross pole. That comes in for me at 12.3 ounces. Next up, let's do the inner body, which you can see gets down really pretty small. The inner body comes out at 18.1 ounces. The Rainfly weighs 16.3 ounces. And finally, we have the optional not included, but made for this tent ground cloth or footprint. It's called both. And the footprint comes in at 6.1 ounces. The grand total of the tent with everything that you saw in the setup on my scale comes out to 51.2 ounces, or that translates to 3 pounds 9 ounces. So just a tiny bit over 3.5 pounds. If you didn't have the footprint, that would bring this whole thing to just under 3.5 pounds. I've used this tent quite a bit myself. This is my go-to tent for lightweight canoe camping. I've used this tent in the Boundary Waters for about a 10-day long trip out there with family, and I also used this exact tent for my through paddle at the Northern Forest Canoe Trail, which is a 740-mile canoe trip that I did by myself in spring of 2021, and this is the tent that I chose. It is an incredibly easy tent to set up. I would say that's my favorite thing about it, and you can set it up on all sorts of different surfaces because you don't require staking it out for it to hold its structure. That's the true beauty of any freestanding tent. My favorite things about this tent is that it's very, very lightweight, very fast and easy to set up, and very simple, and still has a lot of organization inside. You can fit 2 people in there if you're cozy with the other person, but it's a palace for 1 person.